Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to Ancient Epics, the place where the greatest stories of humanity come back to life. Long before iron ships crossed the oceans and long before glass lenses searched the heavens, the skies above the American continents were already mapped with astonishing precision. There existed a forgotten age when stone cities rose not merely from Earth, but from the movements of stars. In that age, entire civilizations aligned their lives, harvests, rituals, and destinies to the slow breathing of the cosmos. Some of these people carved stairways that counted the days of the year with shadows. Others traced invisible rivers of light across the Milky Way and saw there the forms of animals, ancestors, and sacred powers. Yet much of this knowledge was nearly erased, buried beneath jungles, dust, conquest, and silence. Only in recent generations have stones begun to speak again, revealing that ancient America possessed astronomers whose understanding rivaled any of the old world. The night sky above the Americas was darker than most skies known today. Without cities of flame or smoke, the stars burned with fierce clarity. The Milky Way stretched like a luminous spine from horizon to horizon, and the planets wandered like living spirits. To ancient observers, these lights were not distant objects but active forces shaping time itself. The heavens were a sacred text written in motion, and those who learned to read it held power over seasons, survival, and meaning. From the high Andes to the forests of Mesoamerica, from desert plateaus to river valleys, civilizations rose that looked upward as much as they looked outward. Their temples were observatories. Their calendars were cosmological maps. Their myths were encoded astronomy, preserved not in ink but in stone, song, and ceremony. This is the story of how ancient American civilizations measured eternity with naked eyes and unyielding stone. In the lands now known as Mesoamerica, the sky governed everything. Among the Maya, astronomy reached a level of refinement that continues to astonish modern scholars. These people tracked the movements of the sun, moon, Venus, Mars, and distant stars with relentless dedication. Their cities were constructed as instruments, each alignment carefully calculated across generations. At Chichen Itza, a pyramid rises that appears silent by day. Yet during the equinoxes, as the sun descends, shadows form the body of a serpent slithering down its staircase. This was no accident. It was a precise interaction between architecture and solar geometry, marking a moment of balance in the year. The Maya understood that the sun's path shifted slowly along the horizon, and they captured this movement in stone. Elsewhere, at Uxmal and Tikal, temples were oriented to solstices and planetary risings. Windows were placed to frame specific celestial events. Certain buildings functioned as sightlines for observing Venus, whose cycles were recorded with extraordinary accuracy. The Maya calculated Venus's synodic period to within minutes of modern values, a feat achieved without metal tools or optical devices. Their written records, preserved in surviving codices and carved inscriptions, reveal complex calendars interlocking like gears. The Tzolk'in, a sacred 260-day cycle, merged with the Hab, a solar year of 365 days. Together they form the calendar round, a repeating cycle of 52 years. Beyond this stood the long count, a system capable of tracking vast stretches of time far into the past and future. This was not a culture afraid of time's immensity. It embraced it. Yet Maya astronomy was not abstract calculation alone. The heavens were alive with meaning. Venus was associated with cycles of conflict and renewal. Eclipses were moments of danger and transformation. The Milky Way was seen as a cosmic road, a passage for souls and gods. Astronomy, ritual, and worldview were inseparable, each reinforcing the other in a sacred balance. Far to the south, in the towering Andes, the Inca civilization developed a different but equally profound relationship with the sky. Their empire stretched across extreme latitudes and elevations where survival depended on understanding seasonal change. For the Inca, the sun was central, revered as a divine ancestor. But their astronomy extended far beyond solar worship. In Cusco, the imperial capital, a system of sacred lines called sikhs radiated outward like spokes from a wheel. Along these lines stood wakas, sacred places that included stones, springs, hills, and shrines. Many of these points aligned with solar events, lunar extremes, or star risings. The entire landscape became a celestial map projected onto Earth. High above the city, stone pillars known as intihuatana, often translated as hitching posts of the sun, were carved from living rock. These structures functioned as solar markers. At certain times of year, shadows shortened or vanished, signaling solstices and agricultural transitions. The sun, in a sense, was tied to the Earth, prevented from drifting too far away. Inca astronomy also extended into the darkness between stars. Along the Milky Way, the Inca identified dark cloud constellations, shapes formed not by light but by absence. In these shadowy forms they saw animals vital to their world: the llama, the fox, the serpent. These celestial beings were believed to influence rainfall, fertility, and balance. The sky was not a backdrop, but a mirror of the living world. Unlike many cultures that emphasized written records, Inca astronomical knowledge was preserved through memory, oral tradition, and ritual observation. Specialist observers, trained from youth, maintained the calendar and interpreted celestial signs. Their understanding guided planting, harvest, and state ceremonies across one of the largest empires in pre-Columbian America. Northward, across deserts and mesas, ancient cultures of North America also studied the heavens with care. At Chaca Canyon, massive stone complexes were constructed with remarkable astronomical precision. Buildings aligned with solstices and equinoxes, while carved spiral petroglyphs interacted with sunlight to mark key moments in the solar year. On certain days, a shaft of light passes through stone slabs to strike a spiral carving, transforming rock into a calendar of light and shadow. These people observed the sun's extremes along the horizon, noting where it rose and set at different times of year. Such knowledge allowed them to predict seasonal change in an unforgiving environment. Astronomy here was a tool of survival, woven into ceremonial architecture and community life. Across the Americas, despite vast distances and differing cultures, a shared truth emerges. The sky was understood as ordered, meaningful, and deeply connected to human existence. Observation was patient. Knowledge accumulated slowly, generation by generation. Stones were placed not for a single lifetime, but for centuries yet to come. As night fell over these ancient lands, observers watched the same stars return year after year, unchanged yet ever moving. In those movements, they found stability in a fragile world. The heavens offered patterns when the earth offered uncertainty. And so they listened, measured, and remembered. This ancient wisdom did not vanish entirely. It sleeps within ruins, alignments, and surviving traditions, waiting for careful eyes to recognize it once more. The story of ancient American astronomy is not merely one of science, but of reverence, patience, and a profound trust that the universe speaks to those who are willing to watch in silence. As centuries passed and civilizations rose and fell, the sky remained the most faithful archive of memory. In regions where stone eroded and forests reclaimed cities, the movements of the heavens endured unchanged. Ancient American astronomers understood this permanence and embedded their knowledge into landscapes so vast that forgetting became difficult, even after people vanished. Among the Maya, this devotion to celestial order reached deeper into daily life and sacred duty. Royal authority itself was bound to the sky. Kings timed accessions, wars, and rituals to align with auspicious celestial cycles, especially those of Venus. Inscriptions carved into stele record dates that correspond precisely with astronomical events, revealing that history and cosmos were deliberately synchronized. Time was not random. It unfolded according to a sacred rhythm overseen by the stars. At sites such as El Caracol, a round stone structure rises unlike surrounding temples. Its windows and corridors are oriented toward specific points on the horizon where Venus appears and disappears. This was not a place of prayer alone, but of disciplined observation. Over many years, careful watchers recorded the planet's patterns, noting its brilliance as morning star and evening star. These observations fed complex tables that predicted Venus's behavior far into the future. Such precision required mathematical sophistication. The Maya employed a vigesimal system based on 20, using dots and bars to represent numbers and a true concept of zero long before it appeared in Europe. This allowed calculations of extraordinary scale. Dates carved on monuments stretch backward thousands of years before recorded history, reflecting a worldview in which time was cyclical yet immense. The universe was old, ordered, and endlessly renewing. Further south, Andean civilizations before the Inca also left traces of astronomical insight. At Tiwanaku, near the shores of Lake Titicaca, monumental stone gateways align with solar events. The famed Gateway of the Sun, carved from a single block, faces the sunrise at the equinoxes. Its intricate reliefs depict a central figure surrounded by celestial symbols, widely interpreted as a cosmic authority overseeing time and seasons. Tiwanaku's builders worked stone with remarkable precision at high altitude, transporting massive blocks across difficult terrain. Such effort suggests that these alignments were essential, not decorative. The city functioned as a ritual and astronomical center, where sky and earth met in carefully measured harmony. In the deserts of present-day Peru, the Nazca people expressed their celestial vision across an even grander canvas. Vast lines and shapes etched into the earth stretch for kilometers, forming animals, plants, and geometric figures visible only from the air or surrounding hills. While their full purpose remains debated, many align with solar and stellar events. Certain lines point toward solstice sunrises or the setting of prominent stars, suggesting that the desert itself became a celestial chart. The Nazca lived in an arid environment where rainfall was rare and unpredictable. Astronomy offered a way to anticipate seasonal shifts and maintain balance with unseen forces. The lines may have served as processional paths, ritual markers, or offerings to sky deities believed to control water and fertility. Here, observation and devotion merged into one sweeping expression carved into the land. North of Mesoamerica, among the cultures of the Mississippi Valley, celestial knowledge also shaped monumental construction. At Cahokia, near the Mississippi River, a large wooden circle known as Woodhenge once stood. Its posts marked the rising positions of the sun at solstices and equinoxes. From its center, observers could watch the sun emerge precisely where the calendar predicted. This was a solar observatory built from timber rather than stone, yet no less sophisticated. Cahokia's massive earthen mounds, including the largest prehistoric earthwork in the Americas, were arranged in relation to these solar markers. Ceremonial life followed the rhythm of the year, guided by careful observation of the heavens. Even without written records, the alignment of structure speaks clearly of astronomical intent. Among the Puebloan cultures of the American Southwest, sky knowledge was woven into daily survival. Farming and desert environments demanded precise timing. The sun's journey along the horizon was watched from specific points, marked by stones or architectural features. At Hovenweep and Mesa Verde, buildings were positioned to capture sunlight during solstices, illuminating niches or walls at exact moments. Petroglyphs carved into canyon walls depict spirals, circles, and symbols that interact with light and shadow throughout the year. These were not passive images. They transformed as the sun moved, becoming living calendars. Knowledge was passed through observation, repetition, and story, ensuring continuity even in the absence of permanent texts. Across these diverse cultures, one principle remained constant. Astronomy was not separated from life. It guided agriculture, legitimized authority, structured ritual, and shaped identity. The sky was a teacher whose lessons required patience and humility. Errors could bring famine or disorder. Accuracy meant harmony. European contact brought profound disruption. Cities were abandoned, temples dismantled, and knowledge systems dismissed or misunderstood. Written records were destroyed and oral traditions fractured, yet the sky itself could not be conquered. Alignments remained. Stones held their positions. Shadows continued to fall where ancient builders intended. Modern archaeology, astronomy, and indigenous scholarship have begun to restore fragments of this lost understanding. By combining satellite imagery, horizon surveys, and careful study of ruins, researchers have confirmed alignments once dismissed as coincidence. What emerges is a picture of civilizations deeply attuned to celestial cycles, capable of long-term observation and abstract thought. These discoveries do not diminish the ancient world by reducing it to data. Instead, they restore dignity to its intellect and spirituality. Ancient American astronomers were neither primitive nor mystical dreamers alone. They were disciplined observers who united reason and reverence. As night deepened over ancient plazas and mountain sanctuaries, watchers stood in silence, tracking the slow drift of stars. Each observation added a thread to an ever-growing tapestry of knowledge. Through droughts, floods, and generations, the sky remained a constant companion. This enduring relationship between humanity and the cosmos shaped civilizations that understood themselves as part of a larger order. Their monuments still point upward, their shadows still fall on sacred days, and their wisdom waits patiently beneath open skies, reminding the world that long before modern instruments, the universe was already known, measured, and honored by eyes trained in darkness and wonder. As centuries dissolved into legend, the celestial knowledge of ancient American civilizations did not vanish entirely. It lingered in the bones of mountains, in the orientations of forgotten temples, and in the quiet persistence of ritual memory. Even when cities were abandoned and languages silenced, the sky continued its ancient procession, repeating the same patterns that had once guided entire worlds. In many regions, astronomical understanding survived through continuity rather than record. Among indigenous communities, seasonal ceremonies still followed lunar phases and solar stations long after empires fell. Agricultural cycles remained bound to stellar signs, even when their original meanings faded into symbol rather than calculation. This resilience speaks to the depth of the original system. Astronomy was not an elite science isolated in towers. It was a shared inheritance embedded in culture itself. The Milky Way, visible in unpolluted skies, remained a central axis of meaning. In Mesoamerican thought, it was often envisioned as a cosmic tree, its roots and branches connecting different realms of existence. This celestial pathway mirrored the sacred trees carved on monuments and painted in surviving codices. Above and below were reflections of one another, bound by cosmic symmetry. In the Andes, the Milky Way's seasonal tilt was associated with the flow of water and the coming of rains. Observers noted when certain dark cloud constellations rose or faded, linking them to agricultural success or hardship. These observations required long-term attention, often spanning decades. Knowledge was cumulative, passed carefully from elder to apprentice, preserved through disciplined repetition. What emerges from these traditions is not superstition, but a sophisticated ecological awareness. Ancient astronomers understood that the sky cycles were intimately connected to earthly change. The heavens signaled when to plant, when to harvest, when to prepare for scarcity. In environments where survival depended on timing, this knowledge was essential. The destruction brought by conquest and disease fractured many of these systems, yet traces remain unmistakable. Ruins still align with solstices. Shadows still crawl across stone on appointed days. Even without priests or kings to interpret them, these structures continue to perform their ancient function, silently marking time. Modern science, equipped with instruments unimaginable to ancient observers, has often confirmed the accuracy of their work. Alignments once dismissed as chance have been measured and verified. Calendrical calculations carved into stone have been shown to match celestial cycles with remarkable precision. These findings challenge outdated assumptions about technological progress and intellectual hierarchy. Yet beyond measurement lies something deeper. Ancient American astronomy was not merely about prediction. It was about belonging. Humanity was not separate from the cosmos, but woven into its rhythms. The sky was not distant or indifferent. It was intimate, responsive, and alive with meaning. This worldview fostered humility. No ruler could command the sun to rise early or the stars to pause. Authority itself was framed within cosmic order. When leaders aligned their actions with celestial cycles, they acknowledged forces greater than themselves. In this way, astronomy tempered power with reverence. Across the Americas, monuments continue to whisper this philosophy. Pyramids, mounds, pillars, and lines were not built to dominate the landscape, but to converse with it. Each was placed with care, responding to horizon, latitude, and sky. Construction often required generations, suggesting faith in a future beyond individual lives. Such patience stands in contrast to later ages of haste. Ancient observers accepted that understanding unfolded slowly. A single lifetime was insufficient to grasp all cycles. Knowledge was communal and intergenerational. The sky demanded commitment, not conquest. As night falls today over the same lands, the stars still rise in familiar patterns. Orion still strides across winter skies. The Pleiades still cluster like a celestial seed. Venus still burns bright at dawn and dusk. These were the same lights watched by ancient eyes, recorded in memory and stone. In quiet deserts, mountain valleys, and forest clearings, the connection endures. The runes do not speak loudly, yet they do not need to. Their alignments are statements made in silence. They testify that long before modern observatories, humanity had already learned to listen to the universe. The story of ancient American astronomy is therefore not a closed chapter. It is a continuing dialogue between past and present, between earth and sky. Each rediscovered alignment, each decoded calendar, restores a fragment of a worldview that honored balance, patience, and wonder. These civilizations did not seek to escape the world by studying the heavens. They sought to understand their place within it. The sky was not a realm of escape, but of guidance. Its patterns offered reassurance that change followed order and that chaos was never absolute. In this understanding, time itself became sacred. Past, present, and future were not isolated moments, but flowing phases of a single cosmic movement. To observe the sky was to witness eternity in motion, to stand briefly within a cycle far greater than any single life. Thus, the ancient astronomers of the Americas remain present, not as names in books, but as watchers whose gaze still aligns with stone and shadow. Their wisdom survives wherever the night sky is observed with patience and respect. And so, as the stars continue their silent journey, their ancient observers are not truly gone. They remain etched into the landscape, written into the calendar of the heavens and remembered by those who pause to look upward with the same quiet reverence that once guided entire civilizations. If these ancient voices touched your heart today, please consider subscribing to Ancient Epics and ringing the bell so you never miss the next forgotten tale. Thanks for watching.